Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So be it. Chancellor, has the meeting notice been posted for this special meeting?
Yes, I certify it's been posted in accordance with the law.
What I'd like to do is just to do a quick roll call of trustees. Let's just start with the folks here. Trustee Kane.
Present.
Trustee Murillo. Present. Trustee Broussard.
I'm present.
Trustee Sullivan, I see you, sir. Could you acknowledge? Okay, he's waving. Trustee Saldivar.
I'm here.
Trustee Pierce.
Present.
Is it anyone else I missed? All right, so Wilson and vote. I'm here. I guess that'll count me. I'm here. All right. Is there any public comment?
No, sir, we have no public comment.
Okay. Ms. Mott, Jennifer Mott has something she'd like to say about the work that was done yesterday. From what I understand, it was very good and thorough and considerable.
Yes, thank you. I did want to just take a moment to recognize it's the Chancellor Employee Search Advisory Group. We met for 4 hours yesterday. It was a great meeting to work on this Chancellor's profile. I do want to mention their names because of the work put into this. We had Elizabeth Bueno, John Bergdorf, Roger Chambers, Jennifer Chiotti, Ginger Frey, David Gear, Melissa Gonzalez, Selpa Keshvala, Benny Lambert, Faye Lee, Magdalena Mendoza Stark, myself, Connor O'Sullivan, Doris Reedhart, Raina Tippett, and Quentin Wright. So everyone on this list and part of this committee is dedicating their time towards this effort. That started yesterday with that 4 hours. You can see it is a group representing different titles, different locations, different employee groups, different areas within Lone Star College to provide a good representation of employees. And there, even though there's different titles, it was clear that even with the different titles, everyone felt comfortable to speak freely and contribute towards this Chancellor's profile. So it was 4 hours yesterday, 3 of those spent on the profile. So there's definitely thought put into every line in what is presented to you today. The group put it together, understanding that the board very likely will make its own changes to it. That is expected and welcomed, because then at the end of the day, it is a document truly made through a shared governance process and made collaboratively between the employee advisory group and the board of trustees. So I did want to say a huge thank you to the whole group for spending this time yesterday.
I want to say that I reviewed the profile when I received it yesterday, and it's just excellent work. So I too, want to thank you and the committee for the service you've provided. You've provided a great service to this board, to this institution, and the people and the students of the district. So thank you. For those of you who are not here or on the list in the committee, thank you very much for the work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll have a presentation of the profile and qualifications by ACCT, Julie Golder, or is it Julie or Cecilia?
I'm going to start off.
All right, Cecilia, go for it.
Me. Good evening, Chair, and good evening, board members and guests. Indeed, yesterday was a very productive meeting. And I just wanted to mention that the initial part of the meeting, we covered some best practices in conducting the search and really emphasized the confidentiality piece that's so important in ensuring that we have a successful search. And additionally, besides the 16 committee members that were present and participating, we also have Trustee Kane, who was there in order to provide the charge to the committee in how they are working in partnership with the board in this process and how the board has charged them in their role as members of the Employee Search Advisory Committee. So thank you very much, Trustee Kane, for being there, for staying for beyond the charge element of the meeting, and for supporting the committee. We appreciate that. But indeed, the meeting was very productive, very engaging, very participatory. And, the different individuals who were representing Lone Star College did their job. I mean, they really did bring up elements that they thought were important for us for you to consider in the next chancellor. And we spent time reorganizing and adding, because we did bring in a draft. And I did want to mention that the draft was developed by ACCT, Julie Golder and myself, utilizing the feedback that we got from close to 240 employees of Lone Star College that actually sent in feedback on the electronic survey that was open for about 2.5 weeks. And so we used a lot of that. We also used the information that was gleaned by John Bergdorf's study that he presented a week ago. And of course, he was on the committee and he saw that we did include some of his feedback that was gathered from his survey. So it was very comprehensive and very broad in terms of what was provided and the different perspectives, points of view that the members of the committee represented. So it's an excellent committee. You did a fabulous job in selecting them and charging them, and they're very engaged and committed to the process. So thanks to each of them, and thank you also, Ms. Mott, for reading their names and for serving as our chair. And also, I do want to mention that, of course, Desiree Probasco was invaluable in assisting us in the modifications that were made, the edits that were made during the process. Because even though the committee left about 5:15, we wrapped it up, and then Julie and I stayed with Ms. Probasco in order to fine tune what had come in so that you would get a clean copy. So this evening, indeed, we are going to look at the profile, and there's 3 main objectives that we want to cover tonight. We want to see whether the board has any changes or revisions that they would like to make to the profile. Secondly, we want to review the timeline once again. And thirdly, we'd like to see if there are any questions that the board has. So those are the main 3 things that we have on our agenda. I see that the timeline is actually showing right now. And indeed, yesterday was the first meeting of the Employee Search Advisory Committee. And here we are today with all of you for the special board meeting. And the next things that we have scheduled, or the next item, on May 12th and on May 17th, there will be some training for the Employee Search Advisory Committee, and it will be on inclusive leadership and unconscious bias. And so those are the 2 dates are shown or are provided in case some of the individuals can't come to one or the other, but they'll only go to one of the days, because it's the same training that will be provided, just giving them an option. And so then on May 17th, and actually, I did want to say that as soon as you approve of the profile and adopt it, then we will begin the process of recruiting. And that process opens probably in the next 2 days, tomorrow or the next day, where it'll be posted on all websites, and there'll be ads that will be done, etc. So where are we? We are today about the 13th or 14th. It will kick off the actual recruitment process and in earnest. And that will continue until May 17th, and that's the target date, but the position will remain opened until filled. But that's the target date that we're encouraging applicants to submit all their material. And of course, Julie Golder and myself will be working hard in the recruitment process and talking to outstanding potential candidates about the position and answering any questions that they may have. Then on May 18th through the 31st, the Employee Search Advisory Committee will actually start reviewing applications independently and confidentially. So there's one date that isn't on there, but it's actually May 18th, and I have it on the agenda I'm looking at. That is a slightly different format. But on May 18th, the board members will also be provided access to the confidential applications, and that is on the version I'm looking at. So I know that Desiree has updated it. So again, the board members will be able to, will give you a password and in order to go in, credentials to look at the applications confidentially yourselves and personally. But that's when the committee will be reviewing from the 18th through the 31st. And then on the 31st, we'll get all their rankings in, the individual rankings that the committee members have provided. And then we will tabulate them and put them together from high to low. And then when we meet on June 5th, which is the next full committee meeting, then we will discuss the candidates and select approximately 7 to 8 confidential semifinalists for in-person interviews. And I know we're going to meet somewhere off campus. We're not sure yet where, in order to maintain the confidentiality of the semifinalist interviews, because they are not made public yet. So that will be on June 5th when we deliberate, the committee deliberates and agrees on 7 to 8 confidential semifinalists. It could be one more, just how the conversation and deliberations go. And then on June 21st and 22nd is when the Employee Search Advisory Committee will do the actual interviews of the search committee, of the candidates, the semifinalists that have been identified. And that'll be 2 full days. And on the second day, the committee will deliberate in order to select the 3 to 4 finalists that they will forward to the board. That'll occur on the 22nd, and then ACCT will follow up with those individuals to ensure that they want to stay in the search, that they want to continue with the process, and then we'll provide you the names, and then Lone Star College can make the names public of the finalists. So the public sharing doesn't occur until they're finalists. Everything else is confidential up to this point. And then let's see, the plan is that on the week of July 10th is when the final candidates will interview with the board, tour the college, participate in open forums, and meet with constituent groups. And then after the final interview, the board will deliberate. And during the deliberations, ACCT will provide you with confidential oral in-depth reference reports. You'll also receive background checks, very thorough background checks, and also information on social media checks. And then the week of the 17th, it's highly recommended that the board visit candidate number one's institution to learn about them on site of their institution. And so week of July 24th would be when the trustees meet to select a sole finalist, and you'd negotiate the contract and then announce the next chancellor of Lone Star College sometime on July 24th. Now this is a subject to change. We've indicated in discussions that if there's something that you want to spend more time on, it's your search. So that's absolutely possible, to do. This is something for us to work with and work on, but it's subject to change. Are there any questions on the timeline?
Trustees, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Cecilia.
okay, sure. So I'm going to now ask Julie to come up to begin the profile discussion.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board. You should have all received the draft profile. And we want to take this opportunity to have you share your input, any final edits, changes. If it is something that you are looking for in your next chancellor, it should be reflected in the profile. If you need to take a few minutes now to make any final reviews, mark it up. That is certainly an option. So however you'd like to proceed.
Are we open for questions now, Julie?
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
This is Trustee Pierce.
Go ahead,
we-
trustee.
Okay, what I wanted to know, I looked at your profile and I do have a question on the first one. It says qualifications. What is the reason behind simply accepting a master's degree? What's the rationale behind that? I thought that was kind of discerning to me, but I just like to know the committee's rationale that you would accept a master's degree person. You prefer somebody with a doctorate, but why the master's degree? What's the rationale here?
Sure. And there was actually quite a bit of conversation regarding that one point, and the academic credential is often a point of considerable conversation for any profile. Ultimately, the committee members, there were definitely varying opinions, varying strong opinions on the committee, but the majority ended up saying, essentially, we want to keep the door open for the possibility of an extraordinary leader. There could be someone very accomplished who is a great fit, who does not have a doctorate. So to keep the door open, and I'll also ask Cecilia, if Jennifer had any, we're talking about the conversation that occurred regarding the doctorate, explained that there was considerable conversation about keeping the master's required and keeping the door open for that possibility after a lot of back and forth.
There's a microphone right in front of you.
Yes. Yes, that was definitely a significant item within the profile. I think it was the only item that we as a committee needed to take a vote on to be clear where that landed as to whether to require a doctorate or not. And it did come out 9-7, I believe, in favor of putting it as preferred, not required. But that does mean there were 7 that strongly felt like they wanted it to be required. So I do want to note that while it wasn't a majority, a significant portion of the committee did feel strongly that a doctorate be required.
Okay, and as a trustee, I feel strongly that a doctorate should be required too. We are an institution of higher learning. That is just my opinion. And I can't see that you're going to have too many flowers out here that's highly significant. Now, remember, we're talking about higher learning academia. And I don't, like I said, I feel like a doctorate should be required. I'm a trustee as a board member sitting in a governing position. Now that's my field. Now, like I said, I understand that you don't want anybody to be left out, but you are an institution of higher learning. Now I believe in the qualifications should be a doctorate required. That's me as a voting person who's going to vote on this profile. And I can't vote and approve a profile looking for a chancellor that simply has a master's degree. That's just my take, my opinion.
Chair Stoma, may I be recognized? It's Mike Sullivan.
Yes, sir, trustee Sullivan, go ahead.
Thank you. We're all trustees in this meeting, those of us that are present and participating anyway. I'd like to toss a question to Dr. Head if he could be prepared to answer. Dr. Head, if I'm not mistaken, the chancellor at St. Jacinta College is Brenda Hellier. And when I was on Houston City Council at the time, they went through a chancellor search as well. And they settled on Brenda, who had a master's and not a doctorate, with the agreement that she would pursue her doctorate as after she was appointed Chancellor of San Jac. Is that right?
Yes. That was part of the condition of her being hired, that she receive her doctorate.
Would you share a little bit background on that? And if, in your view, if that's been successful and how she is functioning as a leader of the system?
No, it's from my experience, it used to be required. That was just kind of the standard. You know, what's happened over the last probably decade, maybe 15 years or so, that there are increasingly chancellors with, especially in big systems, that don't have doctorates, but they have other background. That sometimes it's a politician, sometimes it's a business person, sometimes it's somebody that worked their way up through the system and has this great experience, and you don't want to rule them out. I mean, I do think a doctorate preferred, but not required necessarily, is the way to go over this. And I heard what you said, the committee was split. My guess it was the faculty and the people with faculty backgrounds wanted a doctorate. But the reality is the chancellor's position is not so much an instructional leader as it is that you're the leader of a big, we're a corporation. We are. It's a big business. We're in the business of teaching and learning. So it's a background in instruction, student services, finance, all the things that you've listed here. So it's not as critical, I think, as it used to be. So
Right.
I think
Just a closing
the way you
comment
have it
too.
preferred is, I mean, the way you have it written is preferred, yes, but if you've got somebody that's qualified, then you're really looking for somebody that can do the job. So.
Chair Stoma, but one more comment, if I may, while we're on this topic of degrees and qualifications. One of the most, it's not quite the same, and I realize that, but one of the most successful public school superintendents in Texas, an expert witness in Austin and DC on a number of issues, has been Dr. H.D. Chambers with Alief ISD. And he doesn't have a doctorate either, nor did he ever intend to pursue a doctorate. So I just want full balance and for our field to be evaluated openly and fairly. Thank you.
I would like to say, you have a.
Art, yeah, well, yeah, and along,
Maria, go ahead.
yes, along the same lines, obviously, we're all gonna have different opinions. I also have little allergies like you, so please bear with me. I noticed that under minimum qualifications, one of the items was classroom teaching as a minimum qualification. And that's one of those that would be nice and maybe adds to the dynamic of the person and stuff, but I wouldn't say it's a requirement, just similar to the other one. I mean, I'm not saying, I would say it would help them. I don't think it should rule anybody out. Just go ahead.
I'll give my personal opinion as a trustee is that, and what we're doing is we're going through a process. Thus far, we've engaged representatives, well, certainly the trustees have been engaged. We've engaged representatives from the college employees to come up with this profile. It is just a profile. We still have a process to go of recruiting candidates from this profile, which, it's like to borrow a scene from the Bible. It's like casting a net, right? Cast the net wide in hopes that you bring in the most and the biggest. So I kind of see this profile as casting the net. We still got to bring them in. And then there's a process which we have to go to evaluate. We can use this profile as a guide, as a checklist if we want to check out who has what. But at the end of the day, trustees, it's up to us. It's going to be up to us. We're going to have a lot of discussion, I believe, over whatever candidates bubble up in this. I do believe I think I know this board somewhat. I do believe if we don't like the finalists, we'll just say we don't like the finalists and we want to see others, which is our right. And nobody is going to pressure us to do anything different if that's the conclusion we come to. So I would say at this point, my opinion again, that the profile is good. I mean, I've seen a lot of, and I've written a few, position profiles, job descriptions, if you will. It's good. I think it's good to cast the net. So that's my opinion on this matter. Thank you.
Chairman Stoma, if I may.
Yeah.
I have a question, Joey, if you don't mind. I guess I'd like to see if you can walk us through how this becomes an evaluation tool. I know there'd be a portal and they'll, get the rate and stuff like that. So is it all go in there? Is it a description? I have no idea how it's gonna look. So can you share that with us?
Of course. Excellent question. And I'll share what was explained to the committee yesterday,
Please.
how the review process will work. So on May 18, they receive access along with the full board to the confidential applications. They receive what we call a tally sheet, and the holistic profile becomes their rating instrument. So an instruction that we gave to the committee is if you are looking for that quality characteristic or skill set, it needs to be in here because this is your holistic rating instrument. Every committee member will rate the applications on a straightforward scale, a 2, a 3, or a 4. 2, based on the profile, I don't believe this individual is competitive. 3, based on the profile, maybe, or I have some questions, or 4, based on the profile, this individual looks competitive. This is someone I would potentially like to interview. They give every application a 2, a 3, or a 4. They send it back to ACCT. The review is private and confidential. We ask for no sidebar discussions. We put that into an Excel spreadsheet. We sort it high to low. We start the next meeting sharing the overall ratings so that the committee can see here's where there was interest and excitement. Here is where there wasn't, so that the conversation is focused on the most competitive candidates where there was already initial excitement. And that's how we organize the conversation.
I'll follow up. So how do we, is there any way to ensure that some of these are not, some of these questions or some of these elements should be weighed heavier than others? I mean, is there, because I mean, if the rating is the same for each one, some of them more important than others.
And every committee member will have a very different perspective. For some, external or the classroom teaching will be more valuable. For other committee members, they're going to look at other things. So every unique lens, background, perspective enriches the process. And ultimately, consensus is reached.
So the score, but is there something about an ultimate score based on everything that's gonna be used?
So we do not come up with a detailed matrix, a overall score.
Okay.
Without breaking it into subcomponents. So the totality of the overall qualities of the applicant.
So you don't do a final number,
A 2, a 3, or a 4.
but not total or anything.
That is all.
Thank you.
Any other discussions? So let me just
I have
ask
a question.
Oh, go ahead. Who's this? I'm sorry.
Chairman Stoma, this is Miriam.
Go ahead, Trustee Salvador.
I do have a question. I think this is probably more directed to the chancellor. Just reviewing the profile under the financial and operation acumen. I noticed that some of the bullet points mentions, maintains, identify, knowledge, experience, successfully, balancing, successfully competitive. So my question is, where it says knowledge and understanding of community college, experience in managing a multi-million-dollar bond measure and significant capital projects. What's the difference, I guess, as a chancellor between experience and having the knowledge of it?
When you're the chancellor, let me just break this down. When you're the chancellor, you're deciding on exactly what the strategy is and working with the board, but really it's an internal mechanism over what the strategy is to get the bond passed. number one. And a lot of that is dealing with the community because you're talking to a lot of people in the community ahead of time to see, and then you develop a strategy, which is what we did the last time to get it passed. So, but you're talking to a lot of people because you can tell which way the wind is blowing and whether they like what you're doing or you need to change it or you're too focused on one area. So, and then carrying it out and if I'm understanding this, so the chancellor, you have to work with the presidents and the vice chancellors. You've already got it, and it's tied back to the bond. So but you personally, what I'm doing is taking a look at, are we meeting what we passed in the bond? Do people understand it? We're talking to community groups. Every project we had, we met with the community to talk about what it was that they were looking for over there. And that's usually run by the presidents. And so, and then the facilities people would be there. And we already know which programs are going to go in there, but we want to put community rooms in there, for example, or we want to make sure the community is buying into what we do. But at the end of the day, I'm relying on the facilities department. I mean, there's a couple of things you have to do, which is stay within the budget, number one, to make sure that it fits the look and feel of what we're doing. I mean, I'm looking at that. I'm making sure that they don't tear down every tree in the world because this is where we live. A lot of what we've been doing is getting, and I'm relying heavily on the CFO and her staff to get a plan. We have it all laid out, which is what's going. The timing on this is when we want to make sure that we open it during a reimbursement year, because if we open it in the wrong place or the wrong time, we're going to miss one of the funding cycles. So does that help, Trustee Sadler?
It does. I just wanted, just my question
Designing the
was,
process and then carrying it out.
understand, it's just my question was just the term versus, experience versus having the knowledge of how to manage a bond measure. But that was it. If experience is the correct, I guess, term for that, then it's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, there's other people. My guess is that most chancellors and presidents, especially presidents, have not necessarily been through a bond passage. They haven't. And so we've been through some mega ones here and like almost 500 million, a couple of them. It's rare though to have big bonds like that. Usually what you see in smaller places is you may see 75 million or 100 million or 150 million, but not at what we're looking at. So you don't have to know all the detail though, but you have to hire people that do know the detail. That's why you have a CFO and facilities and sometimes you hire a consultant to help you with all that.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Any other discussions, trustees? Trustee Mario?
Yes, as he described, the bond measure, I got on the board just after we approved, at the same time we approved one, and so I was able to see how successful it was and the work that went into it and the leadership and all that. When we talk about improve, and I'm kind of looking at some of the questions here, some of the profile, improving business process and operations through large complex organizations. Those are the things that for me kind of reflect what I see the current chancellor and the system really get right. I just keep thinking about I was sharing with you earlier about how, I was wondering sometimes we want to see if we can bottle this person next to me here in terms of what he did right and how he managed to continue that. In many ways, that's why I mentioned, I want to separate some with it from others. I mean, some of them much more important than others. The stability, being able to understand the community funding models, expert over here, understand the external confer and collaborates with external local business civic leaders, elected officials. If you don't have that, I mean, it's going to be very tough, no matter how good college you are. And at the same time, we also have to come up with, we can't expect somebody to be just like that, right? I mean, in terms of personality and stuff, right? Yet, of course, personality is important too, and it's listed here. So we do want to have that positive relationships, excellent interpersonal skills, transparency, collegiality, positive relationship. So thanks to the committee, I think, and I know why they spent a lot, 4 hours in it, then please thankfully thank them for it. Things that needed to be articulated. But still, I kind of come back to some of these are more important than others. And I mean, I could do without some of them. I mean, not to diminish the credentials or the teaching experience and all that, but I can overlook those if the other ones are really good. I mean, it can help their effort. So will the committee, and I know it's just an advisory and we'll take it as we want to, but what is their understanding about how they're going to select the finalists? I mean, there's so many criteria and stuff. Maybe I'm missing something there. Is it just they're going to look at the points in general and make a subjective decision on their own?
So they each will independently, as I referenced, go through the applications, rate them, think about what the strengths and weaknesses are, because the richness is in the discussion. So when we meet on Monday, June 5, they will have reviewed and rated all the applications. They'll be ready to champion some, have concerns about others. And for the group that they want to discuss, we take them one by one. What are your thoughts? What are the strengths? What are your concerns? Is this someone that you at least want to invite for a first round interview? Yes or no? So we treat every candidate that becomes part of the discussion the same way to create a fairness and consistency in the conversation.
But they do understand, I mean, they have that in mind through a whole process of what we're looking for, right? I mean, based on this and the numbers. Okay.
Yes, and this profile is a key document, and we emphasize that to the committee, to the board, because tonight after, if you have any edits, this will be approved. And this is what candidates will read very carefully across the country to determine fit as a whole. And we also said it's unlikely that a candidate will be able to check every bullet point.
Okay. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to us.
Trustee Maria, I'm just trying to understand, and you and I have talked, of course, privately about this. So is it your concern that the committee, the employee committee, would make selections, and there would be others in the group that they didn't select that would be perhaps more qualified? Is that your concern?
To an extent, I guess it's important to trust. I mean, I guess I want to trust the process, right? And just in my mind is some people could be really good at all these other things, and yet maybe not as good as others, and they're getting more weighted on the others still. Maybe, or it's difficult to not. We're all humans, and I think I discussed this last time. Sometimes somebody will come out and be real dynamic, really powerful, really impressive, and somehow we miss over the real hardcore parts that the board wants to see. So I know that as so I guess in that case, is it possible that we miss out somebody that does have what we're looking for, but somehow they got dismissed? Perhaps, but I still trust the process, and it's still a recommendation. We still look at all. We're going to be able to look at all of it. So I just want to make sure I ask all those questions to make sure we're, it's working out.
Trustee King?
I'll just say that in the past, as I've evaluated candidates with holistic scoring, the discussion is a real key item. And I know you were pointing that out just a moment ago. Without identifying any specifics, can you just touch on some of the discussions that you have had as ACCT has worked with other community colleges across the United States that really illustrate the point that even with holistic scoring, that once you sit down with the committee and you start having discussions about the people that are under consideration, let's say have been given 4s in the scoring, how all that typically, how that goes.
Right. And that piece about honoring and respecting the process that's been in place is critical. And boards around the country have had similar conversations as this one tonight. This transition creates anxiety and uncertainty. And it's remarkable the consensus that is reached, that by and large, committees and boards are on the same page in terms of big picture leadership. And the conversation is based on the overall ability to lead an institution of this size, and that holistic scoring helps keep an eye on the big picture.
And if I may, I believe that is the right approach. It's the approach that I have always been familiar with and that I have seen in multiple organizations when choosing leadership. It's not a matter of going down a checklist and putting an X in a box. That's not it. It's a holistic scoring process that when you get a group of people who've scored the candidates and you enter into a discussion, that's when good things start to happen in terms of the information that comes out and the candidates that rise to the top.
And I might add that it is such an enriching conversation because people will see one thing and other people may have missed it, or might point out, well, did you notice this person earlier in their career had 3 jobs where they didn't stay more than 2 years at a single institution. So by having all these different lenses and backgrounds, it really creates a rich conversation where the most important points rise.
I just want to say that colleagues, trustees, I think we should trust the process here. ACCT, you've done an excellent job thus far. I have no criticisms of the work you've done. I appreciate your work. We appreciate your work. But we need to trust the process and go through the process. At the end, again, we, the board, will make the decision. We may look at the finalists and say, man, we don't like any of those. Give us 4 more. We can do that, you know? So let's give the process a chance, realizing that we are the ones who will decide they're in control. I mean, the net is we are in control here. We can do what we want. So, I mean, I think everyone needs to speak up and speak their minds and hear your opinions. But let's give the process a chance. Then we'll make the choices accordingly as they come. Any other discussions?
Chair Stoma, Mike Sullivan.
What's going to happen next on the calendar?
Say again.
Can you mention? I think there's a training following up. I think unconscious
Put the
bias.
calendar back up again, please. The timeline.
Just advisory committee will participate search training, inclusive leadership, and unconscious bias. What's that about?
Sure, and that is on the paper. Oh, it is in there. So May 12 or 17, everyone is being asked to attend the inclusive leadership, unconscious bias. So most colleges have training in place for committees to appropriately review, understand, check their biases, think through things that we may unconsciously or consciously bring to the table. And Cecilia and I will both be going through the college's training ourselves so that we understand the training programs in place for the college and the committees.
It's good to see that. You know, obviously we all have some biases, and conscious or not. And it's always good to even always good to have a refresher course on that and understand the significance of the role or the decision here, because we really appreciate that. But I think knowing that we're having an open mind and we're trying to do our best and, observe and kind of, like I said, a refresher course on what to look for and how to make sure we're human, right? So we're going to do that. But thank you.
Could
Right,
I just quickly mention on that training, it is Carlicia Wright personally who's going to be providing that training to the advisory group.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, sir. Chair
Other
Stonewall, Mike
discussion?
Sullivan.
Go ahead, trustee Sullivan.
Thank you. I just want to take a minute to compliment you on your request that we be open-minded and let this process work its way through. I certainly intend to do that. And I'm also looking at this as a learning experience for me as a trustee. There is absolutely no way that I could tell anyone that I know how this should be done. I know the best way to do it, and I'm going to hire the very best chancellor based on what I think. I'm going to be relying on my fellow trustees. I'm going to be relying on the administration and the committee of employees who have given input to this day, and also on the consultants. And I'm going to take it all in, and hopefully we'll feel very good about the process and the choice we end up making if and when we make one. But I do want to compliment you for asking us to trust the process. I think that's critical, and it will work. We'll work our way through it. And I think the process is going to produce a candidate, may not be on the perfect timeline that we want, but there's no doubt that the consultants have a history of delivering. They clearly know what they're doing, and we would be wise to follow their lead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Any other comments, discussions? All right, so what you need from us is approval of this profile, is that correct?
Or any final edits the board wishes to make or to approve it the way it is.
Do we have any edits we want to make to the profile? Trustees?
I'm sorry. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, I have spoken and said what I had to say. I would like to trust the process, but Lone Star, the leadership has not given me that opportunity. And I've said it over and over again. I've talked about not having Black females in high-level positions. The leadership has not given me any reason to trust the process. And this is where I am. So I admire the team. I don't know even how the employees team, the advisory team was, how that came about. I don't know who put it together. No one has said, did they volunteer? Did they ask to be on it? So trusting the process for me is not a go at this point. I don't trust it because I have not had the experience with Lone Star leadership and some members of this board, this trustee board, to be inclusive and not have unconscious bias. That's all I've seen when it comes down to Black females in higher positions. So if the public is listening, let my point be known. This is where I am.
Okay. Did someone else have a comment?
The only comment I was going to make, just a clarification, I guess, this document here that we're approving will become part of that portal questionnaire or something, just like the way it is here.
I want to make sure I understood.
It's going to be a tool, a metric. It's going to be posted and then they get.
Yes, this will be on the college's website, on ACCT's website. So all interested candidates around the state and the country will be looking at it. Then it will come back to the search committee as their rating instrument. And when the board is interviewing the finalists, the board should really review it as well to say, here's what we agreed upon. Here's what we collectively said we are looking for. So it serves multiple purposes.
So the rating system, this is the rating system. We just put a little score on next to it or something.
A holistic approach, yes.
For each item,
No.
I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
No, just to clarify, we talked with the committee about our review process. And what we asked is that every candidate is rated holistically. So one overall rating based on their resume, based on their cover letter, based on their full application package, how they address the profile.
Just one.
Mr. Chairman. They'll make their they'll make their questions from this profile.
Yes.
That's what they'll do, Art. They'll make their questions from the profile.
When they ask them questions.
The interview questions
Well,
typically
The
come.
interview questions will
Okay,
come from the
okay.
profile.
And when they go
I
to,
think that's what you
no,
we're trying to get to.
that's the first question, but the second one, when they go into the portal to evaluate, what are they gonna see on there? Just one question? What do they see? What do they?
They're
rate?
going to see what the candidate submits.
So I
So
mean,
the-
what is it, when they rate by number? What is the
Are
question?
you gonna do, are you just gonna tally up if there's fours, twos and threes? Are you gonna tally up and it ends up with 89? Are you gonna do each question and then rate it that way?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
no,
You're gonna tally up the whole number, whatever it is,
One number for each person, for
each person.
reviewer.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussions? Any edits?
You think you.
Post edits? Before we consider the vote on this, I want to say something. I want to say personally, I base my personal integrity, my word, my honor, and it's high, that this process is a fair process. I will not tolerate, personally or professionally or as chair of this board, any inklings of discrimination based on anything. This will be a fair process. It is a fair process. It's going to cultivate in the board making a decision, an educated decision. And it's going to cultivate in us having a debate and discussions to come up with the right answer or the answer we can agree upon. I want to assure everyone, not only these trustees, folks in this room, anybody that's out there listening, that based on my honor and integrity, this will be a fair process and there won't be any bias and there won't be any discrimination. I won't have it. So I just want to make that clear with everyone. Okay. Having said that, so I want to close the floor for discussions and we need a vote. The vote's going to be, I guess, to accept the profile as is. So let me see if I can phrase this. Do I hear a motion to accept the profile and qualifications for the position of chancellor as it's written? Do I have a
So moved.
motion to accept it?
So moved.
Second by Sullivan.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No, trustee Pierce.
So the motion passes that we will accept the profile as it's written, and you may go ahead and solicit applications per your process, ma'am. We
thank
good?
you.
Absolutely. We don't have a closed session tonight, right? No closed session? That's good. Any future agenda items? We didn't get any last week. You have any this week? Then without further ado, at 5:53, I call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.